Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun. This evening, we'll be looking at the topic, the internship advantage, creating win-win experience for interns and organizations. And this evening, we have the special honor and privilege of having as our facilitator, Amanda Lambert Ototo. Amanda is the Group Head Human Resources at OCI Group, a diversified conglomerate with investments in oil and gas, hospitality, real estate, and the agri sector. She has worked in diverse management roles with extensive experience as human resource generalist. She is an ISO 9001-2015 lead auditor, quality management systems, ISO 22301-2019 Business Continuity Management Systems Auditor, demonstrating over 20 years of cross-functional experience across different organizational settings. This combined experience makes her adept at aligning people, processes, performance systems to strategic goals, ensuring compliance and operational excellence. She holds an MBA from the University of Port Harcourt Business School in Human Resource and completed executive programs at the prestigious Lagos Business School. She's an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, as well as a professional member of the Nigerian Institute of Management. Tonight, speaking to us on the topic, the internship advantage, creating win-win experience for interns and organizations. Let's welcome Amanda Lambert Ototo. You have the floor.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's engagement. I'm delighted. I'm really happy to be here, especially sitting at the other end of the table as facilitator. And I must thank our host, Dr. Oluyemi Adeosun. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. And I also want to thank you for the great job you are doing in the HRO community. Thank you. May God increase your impact. Well done. All right, so we will be looking at the topic he just introduced, the internship advantage, creating win-win experience for interns and organizations. When he gave me this topic, or when we agreed on this topic and I settled down to begin to pencil my thoughts, my mind immediately went to my experience many years back as industrial training students. So I landed that internship at a very big law office here in Port Harcourt. And I was, on my first day, I was a bundle of nerves. I was really, really anxious, very anxious. I was excited about being in the workplace because it was my first internship ever. It was my very first. I had never worked in a formal setting, so that was my very first time being in the workplace. So I was really excited. And it actually gave me a glimpse into what working in the office, looks like. Yeah. But you see, I didn't quite connect. I was so very anxious, so very nervous. I didn't have a desk. I didn't have a computer. I was told I will be working with the legal secretary, I just had a position by her desk, her workstation. I was just sketching literally by her table, and being a professional setting, I was really looking forward to, some form of training, some introductory word from the organization to say, all right, you're welcome. This is what you'll be doing. But I didn't get any of that. I didn't get any training. There was no definition of role. I was just told I will be working with this lady. And so because there was no definition of role, I was doing virtually everything, literally everything, anything and everything, including running errands, and doing other menial stuff, So I knew then that this is not best practice. My experience was a horrific one. I knew that this is not best practice. So but how do I get this organization to understand, what my expectations were? I was a little girl then, less than 20, so I was really struggling to communicate, struggling to strike conversations with people. In fact, I was walking so carefully, so I don't get in the way of people and all that. But none of, those expectations I had came through. There was nothing from the organization to say, you are welcome. This is what none of those. I didn't get any of those, and I'm sure that for some of us here, if we have opportunity to share our experiences, probably some of us would have similar experience like I did, you know. But today, most of us are sitting as HR leaders, we're sitting as HR executives. And it falls on us to actually design the programs, and execute those programs that will bring, mutually beneficial advantages to the organization and to the intern. So this is what this conversation is about. How should that organization have structured my internship such that I am happy and the organization is happy? That is the conversation we will be having this evening. And I'd like to welcome us once again and to respectfully request that please let's give our full attention to this discussion this evening. And let's feel very free to share our insights and our perspectives. At the end of the day, we want to be able to have takeaways that will help us to meaningfully introduce programs that will help our organizations. That's the intent. That's the idea. All right. So I just go straight on to my slides. Okay. So what is internship? What is internship? I have here a form of work-based learning that takes place outside the classroom. And it actually builds on the academic learning that takes place in the classroom. So it's a workplace learning, the kind of learning that happens in the workplace. And all it seeks to do is to integrate the theories that the students have learned, the knowledge that the students has gathered in the classroom. So you integrate it into practical application. That's essentially what internship is. And by the way, for purposes of this discussion, I will be categorizing the COS program, what we call industrial training, the NYNC program, and also the core internship programs. I will be categorizing all of them as internship programs. Yeah, because there's a very thin line between the regular internship and industrial training. The idea for all of them is to equip the students or the early career professionals with technical knowledge, something that will help them, to thrive in the business place. That's essentially what the idea is. So whether it's industrial training, whether it's the core internship, I would just like to look at all of them as internship. Yeah. So the internship can actually be a paid one. It can be unpaid. It can be full-time. It can be hybrid or, off-site, but this is what internship is: helping students to connect theory with practical, helping the students or the early career professionals to bring together what they learned in the classroom, actually bring it into the workplace and actually be able to see clearly what it looks like. So it's not all theory. At some point, you're able to say to yourself, okay, the principles that I learned, how am I able to apply them to real work? That's what internship does. It creates that platform for the intern to be able to bring into the workplace everything he learns in the classroom. Now, internship has actually undergone evolution. Once upon a time, it existed as purely apprenticeship. Apprenticeship in the sense that, you know, somebody submits himself to a skilled master, someone who has skills in maybe carpentry, maybe tailoring, maybe building, is an expert in that field, expert at what's in that field, you know. So a young person comes to him and says, I want to learn this trade, I want to learn this crafts, and they agree on the duration. The person goes through that training, and at the end of the day, there is a transfer of skills, and the person actually moves on and possibly creates his own business and such. That's how internship actually started. But over the years, it progressed from purely apprenticeship to it progressed into the academic environment. So we started seeing universities introducing it in their curriculum. And it started with professional disciplines like medicine, like engineering, like law. So somewhere down the line in their academic journey within the university, they take some months or maybe a year off school and then go to a business setting, go to a professional setting where they're able to apply everything they learned in the classroom. But I can tell you that it has even moved from that today. So internship today doesn't necessarily have to have any affiliation with a university, with a school. We see some organizations like SPDC, they launch an internship program and then people begin to apply. And the organization takes them through a training for a number of months. And at the end of the day, the successful candidates get offers into that organization, into SPDC. And there are other organizations that do the same. So that's what internship is. This is how it has progressed from being merely apprenticeship some years back, you know, to what universities now introduce into their academic program. And at some point, it became a requirement for graduation. So if you do not go through this program, you don't you don't graduate from the school. So internship, in other words, can be affiliated to a school. It can be a school requirement, and it can also be something that is not related to a school. So it can be somebody who is totally done with school and decides to undergo training in an organization to build him up, you know, with the technical skills that he requires to be able to function in the organization or in the workplace. That's simply an overview of internship, what it used to be and what it is today. Now, what is the value proposition of internship? What is in it for the intern? What is in it for the organization? What values exist? How valuable is internship? Are there benefits for the organization? Are there benefits for the intern? That's what we want to see in the next few seconds. So I've highlighted a few things here, some advantages, you know, that the employer, the organization enjoys, and then some advantages that the intern enjoys, which is what makes it a win-win thing. So it's not just the intern that gets knowledge or that gets that exposure. The organization clearly has some benefits, has some opportunities, you know, there's some value in it for the organization. The first thing I have there is internship provides easy access to talents. Internship provides easy access to talents. I spoke to us earlier about SPDC, you know, launching internship program, and then people get to apply. You have a pool, you have a number of candidates who apply for that. And then while the program lasts, the organization is observing. observing the attitudes, observing the skills, observing the, you know, the observing the whatever skills that the candidates, you know, is exhibiting or is demonstrating. So it's a period of observation for the organization. It's carefully looking at the candidates and it's saying, are there any exceptional candidates among this pool that we can possibly consider for full employment? So that period actually equips them or provides them a time to observe the candidates. And at the end of the day, the candidates that do well are given employment. That's why we say it's an easy access. It provides easy access to talent for the organization. The next thing I have there is it's cost is effective. It provides cost-effective support for projects and operations. So while those interns are undergoing the program, the organization can actually assign them to ongoing projects. The organization can get them involved in operational activities. Sometimes they could even be used for temporary, you know, staffing gaps that the organization may have. So such interns fill up such spaces, and many times it's just for a small stipend. The organization doesn't spend so much, but is able to get these interns to contribute meaningfully to the goals of the organization. So it's cost effective for the organization. They don't part with so much and they get so much value if it is done well. And then again, interns become interns who become employees, they have a higher rate of retention. What do I mean by this? So when the intern is done with his internship program, he already has been exposed to the values of the organization. He understands the culture of the organization. He understands the processes of the organization. He understands the mission. He understands the goals, you know, of everything about the organization, because that internship period would have exposed him to all of those. So he understands, he has a very good understanding of the organization and what the organization stands for. When that candidate, when that intern eventually gets an offer and becomes a staff of that organization, is more likely to be retained, because the adjustment time, the time that he requires, to understand the system, he has already walked past that. So the adjustment time is far less. And what that means is that there is reduced turnover. This man has already been in the system and is fully aware of the functioning, how the system operates. So coming in as a full employee, he doesn't have to struggle. He will not have to struggle. So interns who become employees, they have a higher rate of retention. The next thing I have there as a benefit for the employer is that mentorship opportunities enrich the mentees and promote a culture of learning. The internship period, if it is properly done, one of the things it does is that a mentor is assigned to the intern. And what that mentor is supposed to do is to provide guidance to the intern. So the knowledge that the mentor has gathered over the years in his professional life, is able to transfer that knowledge to the intern. So there is a transfer of knowledge. There is a transfer of expertise. Everything he knows about his career, about his work, he's able to provide guidance. He's able to, literally, put a ladder for the employee, for the intern, to climb. So it gives the intern a form of soft landing. Now, the benefit here is that a culture of learning is established in that organization, because the mentor is providing coaching. The mentor is improving his leadership skills by training this intern. He's improving himself, and a culture of learning is established in that organization. One of the things it does is that he feels valued, he feels engaged, because he sees clearly what value he's providing in the organization. So mentorship opportunities actually promote a culture of learning in the organization. When we do that, we see that that transfer ensures that there is no gap in knowledge. That transfer of knowledge, of expertise, also ensures that that succession planning is supported. That is one very strong value that internship brings to the organization. And then the next I have there is access to fresh ideas and innovative thinking. Fresh ideas. So when you bring these young minds, they are able to, bring some solutions to issues within the system. They are able to challenge the traditional way that work is done. They bring some perspectives that change the game. And at the end of the day, the system the processes are improved, and overall, the system also is improved. That's one benefit of internship. And finally, for the employer, I have strengthened brand reputation. Of course, when the interns have very good experience, very good learning experience during their internship, they share it with their peers. They mention it to anybody who cares to listen. And that promotes the business. It naturally and easily promotes that organization. So everybody sees it as an employer of choice. Everybody sees it as a place to go to, to learn, as a place to go to work. Everybody wants to identify with an organization that creates that kind of experience, positive experience for interns, for its employees. So there is a very simple way of marketing an organization. If it does internship well and it takes care of its interns, the word naturally goes out and it puts the organization in good light. Now, can we just move quickly to intern? What are the benefits? What value, does the intern stand to gain? The first thing is easy route to jobs. Easy route to jobs. So when the platform is created for you to walk into an organization and to stay with the organization for a number of months, and you're able to showcase what skills you have, what abilities you have, if you do well, I mean, it just naturally provides you employment. For some of us that have children, we have kids who are in this category, possibly going through industrial training. What do we say to them? We say to them, please make sure you make a mark. When you go into that organization, make sure you stand out. Make sure, you create value. Make sure that, you're able to bring solutions to the issues that the organization have. That is the kind of counsel, that's the kind of advice we give to our young ones. So when they do well, the organization spotlights them and they are penciled for retention. So when that intern is done with his program, done with his school, he can easily walk back into that organization and he gets an offer. So that's what internship does. The next thing I have is it helps the intern to gain practical experience and to develop professional skills. Yeah, so all the theories gained in school, he comes to the workplace and is able to have first-hand exposure to practical cases. And then, of course, his professional skills, he gets to interact with other professionals. He gets to interact with other employees. And he gains some form of improvements by those interactions. Another benefit is enhanced industry understanding. So working in that organization exposes him to what the industry is like, exposes him to what the expectations of that industry are, exposes him to what you need to navigate the industry. So one benefit of internship is you have a very clear understanding. You have a very good understanding of the industry your organization operates in. And of course, that gives you a good level of confidence. mentorship and clarity in career direction. We talked about mentorship earlier. You know, somebody is holding your hand and guiding you and providing some direction in terms of how you can actually walk through that career, how you can actually grow in the career. It's something that you may not be able to. The intern may not have the benefits, may not have such benefits if he wasn't in that organization. So internship provides him, you know, with opportunity to sit with experienced people. Usually some organizations, what they do is they pair an experienced person with the intern. So that person's job is to hold the hand of the intern. And a very good mentor will provide you with information, will provide you with contacts, will provide you with everything that you need to know to grow and to thrive in that organization and in that industry. And finally, for the intern, networking opportunities. Like I said earlier, that hand-holding actually helps the intern, you know, to know the experts and know other experts too, have contacts, professional bodies, you know, that can help him even as he goes on within that organization and the industry. So these are some of the benefits. These are some of the value adds for the employer and for the intern. All right, can we move on now? What are the key considerations for successful internship programs? That's what I need us to look at very quickly. Key considerations for successful internship programs. Knowing that there is benefit for the employer, knowing that there is benefit for the intern. How can internship programs be properly planned, properly structured, so that it is successful and so that the parties involved derive benefit from it? That's what we will be looking at. The first thing that is critical, very first critical point for internship programs to be successful is HR leaders. Please, we need to consider developing internship policies. One of the things that we see in organizations is because for most organizations, they see internship as CSR initiatives. They see it as PR things, you know, things you just do, you know, to help your clients, you know, things that you do to help a business partner, you know. So internship in most cases, it's treated with levity. You know, there's this casual treatment that internship is given. There is not much seriousness that is attached to it. So interns just come into the organization, like the experience I had when I did mine many years ago. Interns just come into the organization and there is no structure. There is no policy. There is nothing that says this is how internship runs in this organization. All right. So the person just comes and most times you see them, they're just lounging in the office because they don't even know what to do. There's no attachment to anybody, you know. So at the end of the day, you see that the interns are not motivated. There is nothing in the system that motivates them. There's nothing that inspires them. There's nothing that encourages them. And so many times the result is that they're always calling sick. It's either they call in sick or, you know, one excuse or the other why they cannot attend work. But if we consider and actually put into place all of these things we'll be discussing, I'm sure that we will be able to derive benefits for ourselves as organizations. So the first thing is develop internship policies. One of the things that a policy does is it gives direction. One of the things it does is that it provides the basis for consistency. An internship policy is what will say, this is the purpose of the internship. These are the goals. These are the objectives that we want to achieve. These are the responsible parties. So the policy outlines the responsible parties. The policy outlines perhaps the duration, you know, and all the guidelines that are required for that internship policy to be able to run and to run successfully. So where there is no policy, what happens is that it's, the program just runs without structure. But a policy is able to provide a structure, and then when the policy is fully executed, because many times what you see is that we have very beautiful policies put together, and a lot of times they are just resting in our computers or on our shelves. So apart from having the policies in place on paper, there should also be the intent and the will to implement it. So it's not about having the policy, it's also about having the will to implement it. And HR leaders, HR executives, this rests on our shoulders. Whether somebody came in there because we wanted to just we wanted to just help a client or not, the moment the student walks in, the student needs to know that he's in a structured organization and things don't work, haphazardly. So the policy helps as a guideline, to have the intern, to understand what is expected of him, the mentor also to understand what is expected, and all the parties that are related to that internship, to be able to do their bit so that the value that is expected, everybody actually enjoys that. So the next consideration is having structured recruitment for prospective interns. Having structured recruitment for prospective interns. Just as an organization, takes time to conduct recruitments for regular employees, those who are coming in as regular employees. In the same manner, the organization should provide this same structure for prospective interns. So there should be a clear process, a defined process for application. There should be a design process for screening of the applications, for interviews, and then for shortlisting the successful candidate. There should be a step-by-step process for all of these things to be done. So candidates or students should be encouraged to apply, and then they are interviewed, or they are screened and then interviewed. The different stages that our recruitment process takes. When we are bringing in our regular employees, the same processes should be instituted for interns and for the internship program. That's what we are saying. Another key consideration is let there be proper onboarding. We need to provide proper orientation, proper onboarding for our interns. I shared my story. I walked into this organization and nobody had the courtesy of, saying welcome. This is what this organization is about. This is what we do. These are our operating hours. So you just use your eyes, you just use your ears to learn. You just observe people and then you follow suit. But when interns come into the organization and a proper onboarding session is put together for them, first and foremost, they feel valued. They feel valued. You have different members. Somebody's mic is on. Can we mute, please? All right. So when this orientation is done, it gives them that sense of value. And then, of course, we utilize that opportunity to share with them the vision of the organization. We share with them the culture. We share with them expected behaviors, the values that the organization holds dear to its heart. We share all of this information with them. We share expectations. What role is that intern supposed to fill? What are the expectations? What is he supposed to do? What are his responsibilities? Yeah, so he doesn't just come in and feels lost. When orientation is provided, it gives him clarity, and there is a clear direction of where he's to go and how he's to do what he's supposed to do. Another consideration, very key consideration, is there should be objectives and expectations. I've mentioned this in discussing the earlier points. We should be able to define clear objectives. We should be able to define the expectations. For instance, if it is a pipeline maintenance or pipeline repair organization, for instance, it's important that you highlight what technical knowledge this intern should be able to have at the end of his internship. It's important that we state what's the number of field visits, minimum number of field visits that intern should have, should be involved in. What kind of maintenance or what kind of sites activities should he be involved in? These are the different issues that should be clearly communicated. So we need to define clear objectives and define the expectations for the intern. Provide direct supervision, mentorship, feedback, and guidance. Direct supervision. I said earlier that it's important that that intern is paired with an old staff, paired with an experienced staff. So that supervisor's responsibility is to provide coaching, to provide mentorship, to give feedback, highlight the strengths of the intern, highlight the weaknesses of the intern. What that does is that the person knows where he does well, the person knows his areas of struggle and is able to build on those areas of struggle. And then when there is a way that somebody, when you acknowledge a person's strength, one of the things it does is that it registers in that person's subconscious that he's capable, and it gives him confidence. So a very key consideration for internship programs to be successful is that we must be able to take care of the issue of supervision, take care of the issue of mentorship, and ensure that there is guidance for that intern. And then showcase the intern's work through presentations. Let's get them involved in presentations. So they put together a project and they are able to stand before a team and to do presentation. All right. And the team is able to highlight areas where they need to improve, areas where they did well, and all of those feedback, all of them put together help to build the intern. So showcasing the intern's work is another key consideration. And of course, recognize the achievements when they do well. When they do well, let there be commendations, let there be applause for them. All right. Some of these things help to strengthen and encourage and motivate the interns. Sorry. And then exit interviews should be conducted. And that's another very, very, very valuable point. Exit interviews should be conducted as we do for our regular staff. When they leave the organization, what do? We give them a questionnaire. We have an interview session with them and they provide feedback. And the essence of the feedback is for improvements of the organization. So we should do the same for interns. Upon their leaving the organization, we should be able to have that conversation with them where they share their experiences, where they share areas where the organization needs to do better. All right. Such feedback is helpful to the organization. Now, we know that there are some obvious challenges. I've mentioned a few in the course of discussing this presentation. So there are some obvious challenges, and of course, every challenge has a solution, and there are ways that we can actually work around these challenges. The first challenge I have there is, please, HR leaders, let's encourage our organizations, members of our organizations, to avoid using interns for unprofessional duties. So many times what we see is that they are the ones that do errands, personal errands for staff members. As a matter of principle, I do not do that. Let's encourage our team also. So interns should not be the one doing, those menial tasks, those administrative things that have no bearing with their discipline, with their field of study, with what they are there in that organization for. Let's avoid using them for such tasks and give them things that are challenging. Give them things that task their minds. Give them things that challenge them. These are the kind of assignments that they should be given. Tasks that will actually, help them, make them to do researches that will be able to, the results will be able to improve the system. So it's a no-no using our interns for such menial tasks or such menial duties. It's not good practice. It's not good practice because a lot of times it reduces their sense of worth. We should also provide adequate supervision and clear learning outcomes. I've discussed that earlier. It's important that there's some form of hand-holding so that they don't lose track. And then the next point is tackle the lack of structure and clarity of role. I think I've also discussed this in person. So there should be a clear structure. There should be a clear structure and the role should be defined. This is what you are in this organization for. These are the expectations for your role. It should be clearly defined and documented, as a matter of fact, documented. And then another challenge is interns should be paid. We need to encourage our interns. We need to encourage our organizations to pay the interns. Why? Because they are providing some form of value. They are providing some form of value. They contribute to the organizational goals. Yeah. Sometimes they spend money for transportation, and their time also. We need to be able to compensate them for their time and all their contributions, all the resources that they put into the work. That's what the payment is supposed to take care of. It's a stipend. It's a stipend because they're not paid like regular staff, but there should be something given to them as a form of monetary compensation. I know that some government agencies and perhaps some not-for-profit organizations don't offer paid internships. I do not know what their reasons are, but I feel personally that it's a bit exploitative, to use them and not pay them. And a disadvantage of that, having interns and not paying them, a disadvantage of that is that it can actually affect the quality of interns that you get, because not many people will be able to forfeit pay, work without pay, not many people. So what it does is that it reduces the quality of interns that you get in your system. But when they are paid, they're attracted, and then they come in and they provide value for the organization. All right, so I think I've done a lot of talking, and at this point, I'd like us to have some discussion. So what does a win-win internship look like? I'd like to hear our viewpoints. I see Faith, and of course, Dr. Luyemi is here. I see John Musa. What are viewpoints? What perspectives can we share? It's a knowledge sharing session. Some of us here, I believe, are HRO executives, HRO leaders, or HRO. We find ourselves in HRO departments, and some of us may not be in HRO departments, but perhaps we are students or we have gone through internship. So I'd like to hear our perspectives on this. What does a win-win internship? We can actually take them together. What can we do to strengthen internship programs? You may want to share. What your experience is like in your organization. Is there anybody who wants to take the floor?
Thank you so much, Madam. Excellent presentation so far. Let me just chip one or two things in to these valuable submissions you have made so far. One thing I'd like to suggest we take a little more seriously for organizations that run an internship program is that if we don't have, let's ensure we have like an internship policy. An internship policy will detail all of the things our facilitator has spoken around and about today. So, for example, you mentioned softly and outrightly that we should avoid using interns for domestic task and assignment. These are some of the things that we can codify in our policy so that it's crystal clear in black and white. And then it's also, I would suggest that there's this thing they do, for example, sewers, although most of the time is from the school perspective, where they sort of give or create like a logbook that is signed maybe on a weekly or monthly basis. It's okay if the school is doing it, but I think the organization's HR should also create something similar. Sometimes the school may have the intention of what the IT people should be studying. But don't forget, we also have internships today that are not from school. Maybe they're already graduates. So we should create like a workbook of some sort. And upfront, so if the internship is a 6-month program or a 1-year program, there should be a plan, a strategic plan. For example, is the internship going through all the departments in the organization or going through all the units in a department? How long? So let's use HR that I'm sure we're all familiar with. So if the person is doing HR internship, do you want 6 weeks in recruitment, 2 months in compensation and benefits, 2 months, so that it is clear upfront, and then the intended minimum learning outcomes will be clearly stated, and maybe each unit manager would now sign off to confirm the level of assimilation, level of understanding, the degree of the competencies that have been picked. Of course, so if you have a 1-year program, for example, the first 1 month or 6 weeks can just be for induction, orientation, and awareness on body. Maybe while the last 2 weeks can be like debriefing and so on and so forth. So you may also want to include in your plan to say, by the time the internship program is rounding up, part of what we can do as complementary or as support for the intern or interns, as the case may be, is to help them look at their CV and ensure that they now have an upgraded or updated CV that reflects and mirrors relatively the skills, competencies, experience, and exposure they've had with us in that 1 year, 18 months, 6 months, whatever the time frame. So that way, we are deliberate, we are intentional. So that's just the little contribution I wanted to add. Thank you for what you have done so far, ma. Over to you, ma.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Oluyemi. I appreciate. Any viewpoints from any other person, any participants here that has something to add? All right. So I'd like to close with this. When we have sessions like these, it's for us to be able to identify some takeaways that will help to improve our systems. And from everything we have discussed here, one thing that is clear is the fact that a lot rests on the HR department. For internships to be successful, it rests on the HR department. So the HR department is supposed to be like the driver of the internship program. So it is an appeal to every one of us here, just in case your internship program is not structured, just in case, it's done in a lackadaisical manner, there is no seriousness given to it. We can actually reassess how it is done. And from the takeaways here, we go back and improve our internship programs. All of the key considerations that we discussed, and indeed everything else that we shared here, there are things, and then of course what Dr. Oluyemi just shared with us, there are things that if we put together, we can actually be sure that at the end of the day, everybody, all the parties, the intern and the organization, the employer, they actually derive benefits. So the benefits are actually mutual. Both parties get to enjoy these benefits at the end of the day. So it's a call to action for HR executives that we need to champion this, that we need to take the lead in having proper structure. So we do not want situations where interns coming to our organizations and they just loaf about. They just wonder. You know, you just see it clearly that there is no direction for these young people. So let this challenge us and let there be a clear departure from the way that internships are done to something that is more value adding, to something that is more beneficial for the organization and for the intern. So let's rise from this discussion this evening, determining to do it better in our little spaces. And at the end of the day, what we are doing is we are investing in future professionals that will turn around, to be executives and will run the systems, they'll run the organizations and be able to give it the kind of direction that will enable the organization to achieve its goals. So thank you once again for having me, Dr. Oluyemi, and everyone. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know if we have questions. We can entertain questions at this point. Do we have questions? Do we have contributions from listeners, from participants here?
Any questions, any comments, any contributions, or any experience you want to share, either as you being the intern or how you manage interns currently or in the past in your organization? Any beautiful story or insights you want to share from any recent internship management scheme, or any funny story or awkward story you think we can glean one or two insights from? So I think I see a question in the chat box. It says, "Good evening, ma. I want to ask if HR can make this as a project yearly for every organization. Would that mean, for example, every year hire interns?" Do you want to clarify? You can unmute and speak. I don't know your real name. I don't want to mention the name of the organization that is written here.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Please tell us your name and ask your questions, please. You are welcome.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Biodun Samson from Port Harcourt.
Okay.
From the explanation so far with what Madam Lambert Toto spoken about the interns and the internship, I quite understand that this will be an avenue to train people for the future purpose for every organization. It will be an avenue to impart knowledge and skill to maybe fresh graduate or those who want to gain more knowledge about the particular organization. So I asked that question, if it should be like a project, so far that there's HR in that company, to make it as a mandatory project for the organization to engage in this internship program, to use this avenue to impart the next generation skill, either to fresh graduates or undergraduates. That's the reason why I asked that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Biodun. I'm not aware that there is any legislation, any law that compels organizations to have internship programs, in their system. I don't think there is anything like that. So it may be a bit difficult to say, okay, every organization should have it as an annual thing. But for any organization that chooses to go that route, that chooses to have that program in place, all we're saying is let's have best practice. Let's have best practice. Let's not have situations where it's not done. It's done shoddily, Let's internship programs have a proper structure and let that structure be followed. That's all we're saying. I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you so much. Let me just contribute by saying, if you have the resources and capacity to do it yearly, it's okay. If you want to do it every 18 months, every 2 years, every 3 years, is also okay. So what Amanda is saying is that the cycle of frequency is subject to organizational discretion. Of course, it means you have to factor it into your annual budget, for example, so that you can plan for it. Just like Madam recommended that we budget to remunerate or give them allowances and so on and so forth. In some organizations, they also even give them maybe lunch, or you make provision for them to join the staff bus, or give them accommodation depending on where and the nature of the organization. So it's good from multiple perspectives. One, you create pipeline of future-ready employees, both for your organization and also for the industry. There's also a subtle CSR component, like Amanda alluded to, because you probably will not be able to absorb all the interns you train. And of course, that should not be the intention, because don't forget that there are also employees you have employed in the past and you will employ in the future who also probably will intern with other organizations and so on and so forth. So it's also part of providing support to create employability and enhance employability. Let me just add one more thing, and I'm saying this with all due sense of respect. I've also seen in certain organizations and in certain contexts under different leadership that they use internship like it's not CSR, because CSR is somewhat structured. So like an appeasement. What do I mean? Maybe one of your key vendor, one of the
or your clients.
Your clients, maybe you don't even have an internship program or space. So a key client will now say, please help me take my cousin for internship. And then you, I think that's the phrase in Nigeria now, because the real meaning of PR is not how we sometimes use that PR. But we understand what we say. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Yeah. So you will see that for structured organization, if they do internship, maybe they do it, let's use once a year. It may be application for internship 26, maybe between October and November this year. If you want to do some screening, selection processes, you do it, then you notify them, and then maybe it starts from January. If it's a 6 months internship, January to June. Maybe the second batch, July to December. So that is structured. But what I can say to also put it in balance is, let's assume you have space for 8 interns. You may decide to say 3 or 4 will go to that PR. So you can even go and meet your MD, the people that you know typically have those kind of pressure to say, oh, we want to begin the second cycle or the next cycle of our internship program. We are running 10. We'll give you 5, but let the other 5 be on merit, so that you negotiate upfront. You let them take their 5, then you also take the other 5. Now you pair it and you rotate. Otherwise, if you don't negotiate like that, if you are not careful, all the time will be PR.
All the slots will be taken.
Don't have passion. Yeah, all this. So it's better you negotiate it. In fact, some MD will appreciate you. That, oh, you have that kind of mindset. You too know that we have some pressures, maybe from the regulator, from the client, so plan it, because I know somebody will say, no, let's do everything on merit. Again, don't forget that internship is not full-time employment. You can't really say anybody should not be an intern, but plan it so that you have a reasonable combination of, make sure that you can run internship programs that people who don't know anybody can enter. Don't let it be all the 10 interns, they all came in through somebody they knew. Do it that maybe it's on your website, or you even write to University of Lagos, Obafemi Awolowo University, University of Port Harcourt, Ahmadu Bello University. You may even have a national spreader if you hire 10 people, 2 from each geopolitical region, so that it gives it this cosmopolitan outlook, and it also enriches the experience and exposure of all the participating interns. And as much as possible, make it structured. Don't let one intern resume in January, another one in March, another one in. The problem with that is it will not be easy for you to have a structured onboarding process. You will not be able to monitor them, you know, or some organizations, even when they do internship, they can put the interns in a particular batch. They can create a WhatsApp group for them. So they may have a joint project. Maybe every month they read a book together, even though they may be in different departments.
Yeah.
Yes. So just to add, I hope we also find that slightly helpful and useful. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to sincerely thank our facilitator, Amanda Lambert Ototo. This has been enriching. Of course, I didn't expect anything less. At this intersection, I will appreciate this. All right. Okay, I will skip that. Okay, so at this intersection, let's just unmute for those of us who are not in a noisy place so that we can appreciate our facilitator. But I see a question. Let me take this from Zaini. How can interns communicate their ideas to management, especially in an organization that believes that they don't have a say because they are not a staff? If they can't communicate to management, let them communicate to HR. Then HR can do a summary report of the activities, suggestions, innovations of the interns and send it to management. The HR or whoever, L&D team, whoever is in charge, can maybe once in 6 months, once a year, articulate the thoughts and help give a voice. All right. Again, anybody that thinks an intern cannot contribute, he or she is on his own, because nobody has a monopoly of innovation.
Of knowledge, yeah.
And sometimes experience can be an hindrance to innovation. Why? You know so much that you are not completely as open-minded as you should
To
be.
receive.
To receive. You know, all the things you know will be blocking it, but an intern is so fresh that they can see anything. Of course, they may see 10 things, to be honest, 5, 6 of it may not be applicable, but 1 or 2 may be so brilliant, you wonder, I, the veteran, how come I didn't think about it? So let's encourage our management and even ourselves to be open-minded. Look, a cleaner can give you a suggestion that will solve a business problem.
True.
Nobody should have that level of pride or arrogance. That it's just like if you're a parent here, you say you never listen to your children. They can't. Your 12-year-old teenager can give you a suggestion that you may not have pondered or reflected upon. So that's another issue for another day. So just in the interest of time, so that we can rest, relax, and refresh for tomorrow. Tomorrow is Monday. Let's unmute and just thank our facilitator. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Oduyemi. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time, too. Thank you.
Thank you for wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma.
Thank you, peace.
Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, even though we didn't hear from you, Dr. Joy.
Thank you, Ma. Because my organization, we treat them equally as staff. They get all the benefits as regular staffs.
All
Even
right.
their own condition is even far better. But they don't work, so they close earlier than normal staffs. So we take them every year.
All right.
We recruit interns.
Okay, that's
Including
thank
CWES,
you.
all of them. Take them. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening, Ma.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Bye.
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 Thank